Admit it, you expected your guests to act like you. You expected cleaners to act professional, contractors to be honest, and hot tubs to just work. Now you've realized it's not all sunshine and 5-star reviews. That means you're in the right place. This is the community where we talk about the gross, awkward, the operational messes, and the real strategies that help you keep going instead of quitting. Because this is bigger than bookings. It's about building something real, something sustainable, something that your kids can be proud of. Welcome to STR Problems, Strong Solutions. Let's get into today's question. So this is an email from, not a listener because this is episode number 1. This is an email from Maya. She says, "Hi Jeremiah, I could really use some advice. I'm losing money every month on my short-term rental, and I keep getting rowdy guests who all complain about the same thing, my hot tub. Just recently, when it was 10 degrees outside, the guests reported it was almost empty. A contractor checked and says there's no leak, but I found out there was only about 10 inches of water left in it. I don't understand how this is happening. Between refunds and bad reviews, I'm feeling stuck. Any idea what's going on and what I should do next? I'd appreciate any insight." Well, thank you for your question, Maya. I'm happy to help if I can. This is probably not the only hot tub that's having problems. There's a whole host of them. I was dealing with a hot tub earlier this morning, actually. And you know how I like to get off topic. So that hot tub was not heating. It was 65 degrees last night. It's also 0 degrees outside. So we were trying to figure out why it was cold. So I checked. Everything seems to be on, but you don't see that little funnel of water flowing into the filter like you should if the filter isn't clogged. So if it's not heating, but it is actually not freezing either, then the hot tub is actually heating. So the panel said that it was heating, and so I looked and I saw that there what didn't seem to be a good enough flow. Well, if there's not enough flow going over the element, then it's not going to do a very good job of heating up your hot tub. And in this situation, it was taking a very long time. It was at 65 last night. It was at 71 today. So I took the filter out. As soon as the filter went out, water started flowing through very quickly. And you could see the little funnel. And so told the guests, hey, communicate with your host. Let her know if it heats up. It's at 71 right now. Check it in a couple of hours. And in the meantime, put this hot tub filter in the dishwasher. Because if you put it in the dishwasher, it'll actually clean it better than just using a hose. I've heard good things about this. I've tried it without soap. I think it works better with soap. I probably wouldn't use as much as a dishwasher would need, but whatever. You know, it's a method. It does work. So that should get the filter clean and to the point where it can go back in the hot tub. I've been told by hot tub experts that you can run a hot tub maybe for a day without a filter in it. It's not good because you've got an element and things can get not clogged, but they could get caked up against that hot element. So you should only have clean water going over it. But in a situation like this, where the hot tub's not actually heating itself and you just need to replace the filter. Anyway, I communicated that with the host, so they're aware of the issue. And if there's a spare filter, I told them to get, their cleaner who takes care of that hot tub. I told them to have their cleaner go over there with the spare filter and to get it in as soon as possible. So now back to Maya's question about her hot tub. It's out of water, and I'm sure you're wondering why. So this is episode 1, and I'm going to get off topic one more time. But you might have Googled me at this point, and what you're going to find is that I was a math teacher for a long time. I love teaching, and that's why I'm hosting a podcast. But I got into real estate for a number of reasons. And now I'm a real estate investor, a real estate broker. I'm a dad, a husband. I'm a lot of different things. And to you, I'm the voice on the other side of your radio. And if you're checking this out through YouTube, you're going to see that I have a face for radio and a voice for newspapers. But anyway, um, I approach short-term rentals from an educative point of view and also collaborative. So I like to help other property managers, even though I am a property manager myself. I don't see it as diminishing my business in any way. I just kind of see it as, we all help each other. And the more trust there is in this industry, the better we all can do. Um, I feel like there's a lot of people who are just kind of winging it and they don't know any better. And so that's another purpose of this podcast, is because I want to be able to impart some of that knowledge and experience to others. And I'd love that to get returned. I'd love for, some of these of our listeners to email in, call in. We can have conversations about issues, common issues, things that they've solved in the past. And I'd love to host a few more people here once every week. And that's kind of the goal, is I want to have a podcast. So it comes out every single week. And I can talk about all the kinds of things that we run into in this industry. So Maya is running very low on water in her hot tub. I recommend checking the level of the hot tub. So hot tubs are not always level, right? That's obvious, but it needs to be said. Sometimes they're on a concrete patio, and the patio was not built for a hot tub, so it's not level because you don't want puddles growing on it. So they don't make them perfectly level. It could also be on a deck. Decks are not supposed to be level either. If the deck is built for a hot tub, then it might be, but it's probably not. If it's put on a gravel pad on the ground, hopefully the gravel pad was packed down and it was leveled until it was level and packed down at the same time. Also not always the case. Well-meaning folks will get it pretty close to level, but they don't realize until there's a 7-foot wide low-tech level, in that space. So what I would say is, as you're filling it up, do you ever notice that the jets on this side are covered before the jets on that side are covered? That would indicate that it's not level. So the reason why this is important is because it reduces the number of people who can get into your hot tub before you're overflowing the sides. If water flows out over the sides, then your guests are guilty of breaking a hot tub rule. But you have to have hot tub rules. So let's try and attack these things one at a time, right? So part of the guest experience is that welcome book that you give them. Part of the guest experience is the signs that you have up in different places. So managing that guest experience sometimes means creating rules for them. And not everybody has common sense. Not everybody knows how to use a hot tub. And we can certainly assume that some of them know nothing about hot tubs. And they've been dreaming of this day their entire lives when they would get to do a cannonball into a hot tub. That sounds terrible, but we can make that assumption, right? So you've got to temper those expectations and you've got to set some rules. There's another big reason for those rules, and it's liability. Some homeowners have told me, Jeremiah, I don't want to put a hot tub in because I'm worried about somebody drowning and then I'll be held liable. Well, in order for that to be successful, in order for a suit to be successful in that situation, you'd probably also have to be found as negligent or intentionally doing them harm. So if you can protect yourself from those couple of things, I think most judges and most people will live reasonable. Anyhow, if you have no rules, then you're much more likely to be considered being negligent. So your hot tub rules should, you should have some good rules, but one of those rules should say something like recognizing that a hot tub can only hold so many people inside. It's against the rules to put more than 5 people in the hot tub at a time. That's a good rule. You could also rephrase it as, if you start adding people to the hot tub and the water starts flowing over the side, you need to immediately stop putting people in the hot tub. And when you get out, you have to refill the hot tub with the hose that's provided. Obviously, you can't say that if you haven't provided a hose, but if you give your guests the tools that they would need in order to solve their own problems, I think most guests will choose to solve their own problems. One of those problems being that the water in the hot tub is too low, and it's against the rules to get out of the hot tub and leave the water below the jets. So, Maya, I'm going to actually make the assumption here that um, those jets were exposed. When your guests got out, you said in your email, these are rowdy guests. So they probably had too many people in it. They might have done like a swan dive into it, splash the wall all over the place. But you also say this is not the first time this has happened. So to help you understand why it's happened, it's probably just that the water level went down a couple of inches, maybe just below the jet. But then what happens is the hot tub stays on, the water keeps shooting through whatever water's left above it, and right out the side of the hot tub. Now this problem gets even worse, and the water drains even faster if the hot tub is unattended. Now you just said it was 10 degrees. How many of your hot tub bathers are going to get out of that hot tub, take the time to walk around it, put the lid back on top of it, and then put their towel on and walk inside where it's warm? In 10 degrees, probably zero. Not unless there's some sort of instructions for them to follow and they are like your A plus kind of student, right? The class pet. Like they'll follow the directions, but I think the standard guest, the typical person, is only going to follow those directions if there's rules that they are supposed to follow. So a whole other reason to give them some instruction. So anyhow, what will happen, even if they do put that lid on, is water will continue shooting towards the edge, out of the water in that space where there's air before you get to the lid. It'll hit the lid where it meets the wall of the hot tub, and water will actually go out of there slowly. So happens fast if the lid is left off, happens slowly if the lid is left on. So recognizing that this is probably a small thing that turns into a big thing when the hot tub is not being looked at. Um, that would explain what's probably happening for you in your situation. Now, hot tubs are they're a big problem in our industry. I think there's a huge lack of understanding. I think there's a huge misuse of the hot tubs. So if we could stay on this topic for a little bit longer, I'll give you a couple more examples to learn from. And so, property that I manage, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I do manage a property that's got a terrible hot tub. And it's not necessarily my fault. It's a culmination of a bunch of things. So, this is meant to be a podcast that is honest and and genuine. And I'm not trying to make myself out to be some fantastic expert like the Superman who's perfect and doesn't have any flaws, right? So we do have an embarrassing wart, and I'm going to show it to you in a microscope. So let's analyze this situation. And I think at the end of it, you'll recognize like it's really not something that I have control over. It's just something as a property manager I have some influence on. And maybe you'll write in info@galvanizedmanagement.com. Maybe you'll write in some suggestions of what I can do as a property manager to better manage this situation. But I'm about to explain it to you. So here we go. The house has a 100 amp electrical panel. So the homeowner wanted to not go with a 220 volt hot tub. He wanted to go with 110 volt, which I told him would work as long as, and I went through all the different scenarios. The second thing is it's got well water. The third thing is about that well. The well is shallow. Well, it's deep, but it can't, you can't take 500 gallons out of it all at one time. Third thing is I told him to get a small hot tub. He got a big hot tub, and he got a big hot tub that's 110 volts. And we're in the Poconos where it gets very cold, and it's well water. So he doesn't have much capacity. And because it's well water, it's also poor quality. So he never tested the quality before he brought in the hot tub. And that, in hindsight, was a mistake. We probably should have tested the water quality before doing anything else. But the water was clear and it didn't smell and nobody had complained about it. So, we made the assumption that anyway, moving on. So what else? There's a outdoor TV within view of the hot tub. I know it sounds incredible. You can sit in that hot tub and you can watch Stranger Things, but um, that's not good because now your guest is in there for episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, and now they're living in your hot tub like it's their couch. Gross. So we recommend we have it in our house rules that the hot tub cannot be used for more than 30 minutes at a time. But you know how many guests listen to that? It's very few, especially when there's a TV there helping them forget what time it is. So, so anyhow, for good or bad, it's a really nice setup with a hot tub and a TV, and it's a really cool spot. It's by a creek. Incredible, right? But if he had changed even one of these things, the problem wouldn't be nearly as bad. If all these things come together, you now get a hot tub that causes you to get 4-star reviews. And embarrassingly, that's where we find ourselves, is hosting guests that are consistently being upset about the quality of the water, the quality of the hot tub, it's mostly the quality of the water. So, um, we had to go through tech support. Our team did. Our team had to go through tech support and find the manufacturer, who's very hard to get a hold of. This was bought from a normal big box retailer. I don't want to identify who they are because, you know, but normal big box retailer off the website. It took like 3 weeks to ship. When it finally arrived, it was on a pallet. That sort of situation. This was not from a local hot tub store. This was from the internet. This thing came in. There's no name to it. It's not like a recognizable brand name like Lifestyle or PDQ or other recognizable ones. And so we're left to this tech support, and they walked our team through a couple of different things, through the different error codes, getting a new filter for it because the one that it came with wasn't sufficient. Water's getting clogged. We're running into problems with a lot of different things. So there are some things that could solve this problem. Number one is we could empty and refill the hot tub every single time. Problem with that is the well, like I said, doesn't have a whole lot of volume. So if we run it for a half hour, we start getting diminished water quality. So then we have to stop and let it rest for 30 minutes, and then we have to run it for another half an hour. And so it takes about 5.5 hours. Well, 5 hours to refill this hot tub once it's been drained, which is a problem when you've got guests checking at 11 and other guests checking in at 4 o'clock, because somebody has to be there to turn the water off and to turn the water back on. So if he fixed his well issue, we wouldn't have this problem. We asked him to get filters, a whole house filtration system or water softener or something better. And what he chose to do was to send his contractor a couple hours away up and install a filtration system. And the filtration system is like a $60 filtration system that you get from another big box store. And it's not doing a good enough job. We're still getting metal in there. We still have to clean it with Metal Gone. That still takes time. After the water's full and we can turn on the hot tub, it's still going to take a couple of hours to clear up. And that is another issue. Homeowners that just don't listen. So, we try our best, right? So anyway, now the second thing that we do have some control over is the guest experience, right? Is creating rules for the guests. One of our rules is that they have to clean off their body any oils or lotions and soaps before they get into the hot tub. So that means putting on your bathing suit and hopping into the shower and cleaning yourself off with soap and rinsing really well before going in the hot tub. Out of 10, how many guests do you think do that? I would say 9 probably ignore it completely. And one of them goes in the bath without their bathing suit on. And now the bathing suit that was just washed in the washing machine is bringing the soaps with it. So we're running into problems like that. And now another rule is that they cannot spend more than 30 minutes at any time in the hot tub. So out of 10 guests, how many do you think are listening to that? Probably four. Maybe 4 out of 10 guests are actually staying in there for a half hour or less and then moving on. Um, if we jacked the temperature up to like 110 degrees before they arrived, maybe they'd spend less time in it. That's probably also not healthy. I don't know. I like my hot tubs at 101 degrees. That's the number of Dalmatians in the movie, and I think it's the right number of degrees in Fahrenheit for me. But I could stay in a hot tub for hours at 101 degrees. I love it. I wouldn't get out of the hot tub if I didn't have to like refill my beverage or go to the bathroom. But that's my hot tub, okay? So don't judge me. I can use it the way I want to. But anyway, so and you can use your hot tub the way you want to. Now it's your guests that have to follow the rules. So anyway, it does affect water quality to put an unclean body or a person who uses hand lotion in that hot tub because those things through the heat are going to come off through just exposure are going to come off. Another thing that happens another rule is no food or beverages in the hot tub. Now, out of 10 guests, how many do you think follow that rule? I would say maybe 5 of them. Because what are they doing? They're going in the hot tub so they can relax. And what do most people do to relax? They drink a beer. They're in there sipping something. They're like, it's their soda, it's their beer, it's their wine, it's whatever. And some of us hosts are guilty of encouraging this behavior because that beautiful Instagram photo of the hot tub with the tray and the champagne on it and the cherries, no, strawberries and the crackers and the cheese, whatever. You could go nuts with this stuff, but we as hosts are sometimes causing these problems by showing people, hey, this is what you want to do. You can do this here. Well, if you've got a hot tub like the one I'm describing, it really should be discouraged as much as possible. Anyhow, so how many guests actually follow that rule? Probably very few. So now and then you get those guests who are breaking the rules and then complaining about the quality of the water. And it is actually a poor quality of water issue, but it's also an issue with the hot tub, its capacity, its ability to filter, its ability to heat back up. Because those 110 hot tubs, I've seen heating up at 1 to 2 degrees per hour. Not only that, but if you take the lid off in the wintertime, it loses about 1 degree per hour. And that's with it trying to heat up, is it'll actually lose heat. So those hot tubs are not a great solution, but they're not the worst either. They're better than having no hot tub from a revenue perspective. But if he fixed the water issue and if he had a hose bib that could use hot water, then we could be refilling this hot tub with hot water and it wouldn't be such a problem because the guests wouldn't have to wait 24 hours before it heats up. Simple math. If it warms up 2 degrees per hour and we replace the water at 4 o'clock on Friday when they check in, it's 55 degrees because the well pumps water out at the temperature of the earth, 55 degrees. So it goes in at 55 and now it starts heating up at 2 degrees per hour. To go up 50 degrees to 105 is going to take 25 hours. That is too long for most guests. They wanted to use that hot tub the night they got there. So they're already upset. They're already unhappy. And it's not even their fault. It's the guest from before them. So now that they're dealing with this issue, what do they feel like? Do they have to follow the rules if the last guest didn't follow the rules? Should they be getting a credit if they booked this house because of the hot tub? Well, let me tell you this. Every guest says this. Maybe not every guest. You get what I mean. This is so common for them to try and scam us by saying, I booked this house because of the jacuzzi, or I booked this house because of XYZ amenity that is not working. If the lights could be flickering. I booked this house because of the electrical lights. Like, come on. I think they're just trying to get the biggest credit they can, and they're laying it on thick. So now we are in a hospitality industry. We can expect this sort of thing. Guests do act this way. Don't be surprised when it happens. Write me, send me an email, info@galvanizedmanagement.com. Tell me about that terrible guest that tried to con you out of a $500 credit. I would be happy to talk about that for the next podcast. Um, or maybe email me about either your cleaners. I have a client who used to own a short-term rental, and he went through 4 cleaning services in a year. And it was just unhappy, bad invoices, no quality control, skipped a clean, and the guest checked in without it being cleaned, all kinds of issues. And you might be in that same boat because I can't imagine that he's the only one who's experienced it. So if you're running into those kinds of problems, email me about that too. That's what this show is for. I'd love to co-host with one of you, bring you in on my screen, and we can actually have a conversation about what's going on with your house, with your listing, and some creative ways to solve it. I'd also love to hear the perspective of some other property managers, and I'd like to allow this podcast to be the beginning of a discussion. So, as we make an effort to open a community around solving problems for short-term rental owners, share this with a friend. And if today's episode felt a little too familiar, you're not alone. These are the problems no one talks about when they sell the dream of easy passive income. But they're exactly the problems that make or break your operation. If you've got a situation you're stuck on, send it in. Email your question or reach out if you'd be open to calling into the show. Your problem might be the next one we break down, and chances are you'll help a lot of other hosts in the process too. If this episode helped you, share it with another host who's in the trenches. That's how we make the industry better. I'd also love to see you follow us on TikTok at Galvanize Investments, Facebook and YouTube at Galvanize Management, and lastly, my blog on irepoconos.com. Until next time, keep learning, keep building something real. This is STR Problems, Strong Solutions.